Okay, it appears we're live. So welcome to a virtual special meeting of the Allen Park Board of Education. Please know administration and members of the Board of Education carefully considered meeting in person versus a virtual meeting this evening. While on October 3rd, the Michigan Supreme Court ruled that Governor Whitmer lacked the authority to declare a state of emergency under EMA after April 30. On October 5, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services issued an emergency order restricting gathering sizes, requiring face coverings in public spaces, and placed limitations on venues. The limitations on the size of an indoor gathering is noted as only 20% of the normal capacity in a venue with fixed seating. On December 22, Public Act 254 of 2020 was passed to further extend the allowance to meet remotely without restrictions. In order to meet the capacity limitations, if our regular meeting was held in the high school's LGI room, we could only have 18 audience members. If held in the auditorium, we would be able to accommodate 98 audience members on the main floor with 30 in the balcony. Given the high interest level in return to in-person learning plans and other topics, our last Board of Education meeting had 315 viewers. It would be problematic to turn anyone away from a public meeting as it infringes on their rights under the Open Meetings Act. And that would be a distinct possibility given the capacity limitations compared to the average Zoom viewers from recent meetings. Over the past several months, viewers have ranged from 266 concurrent viewers to up to 897 viewers. The board appreciates the interest and participation of the community. For these reasons, the board opted for a virtual meeting again this evening. During these challenging times, our school community continues to stay strong. On behalf of my colleagues, we appreciate and value your interest, passion, and input. Please continue to keep your focus on taking care of yourselves, your families, and each other. This evening, citizens who wish to express public comments may do so by accessing the online citizens comment form located on the district website. The homepage has a link that will lead you to the form, as well as to this evening's agenda. Your comments or questions pertaining to an agenda or non-agenda items will be read during item number 7. Comment forms will be accepted up until that time of the meeting. Prior to this meeting, board members and presenters ran a test of the system. Please note that no business took place. It was merely a technology test. And with that, I would ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance on Inauguration Day. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And this evening, we're going to have Mrs. Flipiak take a roll call vote, or roll call for attendance, please.
Absolutely, Mrs. Filipiak, I am present. Mr. Klein.
I'm here.
Mrs. Lucy.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mrs. McDonald.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
And Dr. Warren.
Here.
Excellent.
Thank you, Mrs. Flipiak. We'll seek approval of tonight's agenda for our January 20, 2021 special meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 5, President's Communications. I have none at this time. Item 6, Reading of Communications. Mrs. Flipiak.
I have none at this time.
Okay, Dr. Tefelsky, we'll go to you for item 7, Citizens' Comments.
Yep, sorry. I spilled water on my keyboard earlier today, so I don't have a keyboard. So I'm going through. Give me 1 second. Let me just pull those up again. It was not great, I have to say. Okay, we have 14 comments. And here we go. The first one, unfortunately, they do not have a last name, so I will not be reading that one. If you'd like to resubmit, I urge you to do so. But again, as we stated at the last board meeting, any comments that do not have last names, we will not be reading. The second one, is from Amy Senior. And the fact that schools should not go back in person, the schools should not go back in person. And I think the fact that the district is having a board meeting to discuss the safety of in-person learning via Zoom is a perfect example as to why. The 5% rule was put into place to make sure in-person learning resumed safely, and to discard it because the schools are not getting the results that they want is completely unprofessional. The board should also take into account the new strand that has been reported and to be much more dangerous than the already dangerous strand we are trying to protect ourselves from now. The second comment, I won't get me out of that. Nicole Adkins, comment, what benefit will the half-day hybrid bring if the goal is limiting exposure through cohorts? But then the school's place allow any kid who needs childcare during the other half of the day outside of school hours with kids that aren't in their cohort. Does that not defeat the purpose of limiting exposure with hybrid? Number two, what will educators and parents alike do with their children? Will they have to also now pay and put their kids into latchkey, something they have not typically had to have done during the pandemic? Number three, how will you work at closing the gap of such vast discrepancy between educational experiences students are having that live in the same district, are in the same grade, but have different teachers if you choose to keep us virtual? As there are students who are falling behind, not because of the pandemic, but because their assigned educator isn't fulfilling the bare minimum curriculum expectation. People constantly want to applaud the idea that these kids aren't falling behind, they're surviving a pandemic. However, the children in the classroom we recently left are experiencing a serious disservice to their education by not being provided the curriculum, concepts, or school board scheduled time students deserve. So in this student's situation, the students are falling behind their peers that live blocks from them. This is happening in our own district. Furthermore, if you are not using the Lindemann educator, Mrs. Rice, as an example of how to successfully execute online education, you should be. There's not a page left unturned. Her students are engaged. They're 6+ developing academically. Like some students who haven't adjusted well to remote learning, not all educators have either, creating a large discrepancy of education received. How will this gap be handled? Yolanda McNeese, please open the schools. The kids need to be back in person full time. The kids are suffering and need some normalcy. Nicole Bundus, as I have expressed in all my emails and comments, I urge the board to return the students of Allen Park who wish to return as soon as possible. I understand there are parents who wish to keep their children home, and the AP has made an option for them. Now is the time to urge the children who want and need to return in-person learning a full day and full time. I also urge the board not to go with a half-day plan. I'm asking for no more delays. Also, I know AP is unique, but please look at the majority of the Downriver school districts. As of this week, most are back to some type of in-person learning. Thank you. Dan Smith, after reviewing the proposed hybrid option at the last meeting, I would like to voice my opinion and let the board know this would be even worse than the remote plan we have now. With both parents working, it would be harder on the babysitter to run our 3 different grade children around us in the middle of the day. What I would like is for my children to be in person in school, but if the board isn't willing to do that, please don't rock the boat now and make a half-day hybrid. I feel completely safe sending my children to school for full days. Allen Park should have been leading the way in returning children to in-person learning. Very disappointed in this board and superintendent. Erica Velez Gobea. I believe the hybrid method will definitely help with the spacing of students. During the only 2 weeks of face-to-face we've had this year, my daughter was unfortunately exposed at school, and I believe a huge part of that had to do with the lack of spacing between students in overcrowded classrooms. With that being said, I don't believe the half-day method of hybrid is feasible for most parents, including myself. I'm a frontline hospital worker, and it will be impossible for me to figure out midday pickup or drop-off 4 days a week. I sincerely hope there is another plan in terms of hybrid, such as 2 full days for each group, but I can't see the half-day method working for any of our parents. Amanda Andres. Amanda, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I want to know when we were going back to school face-to-face. I've emailed Mr. Dargan, was told that every person that emails him for kids to come back, there was a person emailing him for kids not to come back. But if that is the case, can we not have those kids sign up for virtual learning and get the kids and parents and children that want to go back to do so? Amy Smith. Thank you for your time. My comment today is in regards to the half-day option. As a full-time healthcare provider in the hospital setting, I'd like the board to seriously consider the amount of working parents we have in Allen Park. I could easily rattle a list of fellow healthcare parents, and I'm just one from just one of many healthcare systems in our area that live here, not to mention the other equally important professions that would make a 2-hour school day nearly impossible. Along with the obstacles for parents, I'm also concerned for the additional amount of work we are putting teachers to completely change their lesson plans again. For them to teach everything twice a day seems cumbersome. Lastly, I hope most importantly to everyone, the toll on these kids. Their education should be something they can rely on, not something that changes every couple of months. It seems they're trying to reinvent the wheel with this plan. Mr. Darga stated in the last meeting that while there was a positive cases, there were no outbreaks in our schools, meaning that what you were doing was working. I want these kids back in school more than anything, but the plan creates many obstacles, doesn't seem like the best thought out option. I'd also be interested to see the attendance rate for half day prior to COVID. As a working parent, I have had to make decisions on my children not to go to school on half days because I was unable to coordinate middle of the day transportation. I imagine I'm not the only one, and now we need to make the decision every day. Again, thank you for your time. Melissa Tuccini, at the last board meeting, the plan that busing would only be for elementary students was mentioned and then never discussed again. The comments at the end of the meeting from parents made it quite clear that this was one of the more important concerns. In middle school in particular, there are too many students that are not within walking or bike riding distance. There are too many parents trying to be in the same place at the same time. It did not work in October. The situation at drop off and pickup was dangerous. I would like to hear the reason why you would only like it offered to elementary level, and I would like to know what the plan is to keep our students safe. Richard Browning. Can we please allow staff members to receive the first vaccine before returning to school? Safety for our students begins with our staff members. Alexa Cooper. First, I want to say thank you to all the board members, administrators, and APPS staff. The job you have is not an easy one, especially at this point in time. I know there have been many sleepless nights, meetings, discussions, research, and so much more that has gone in to all the work that has been done since the pandemic began. Thank you. I'm a parent and an elementary school teacher, so I may have a unique perspective. I want to first say that it's not the job of the board, teachers, administrators, or anyone else in the school system to figure out transportation or care for students when they are not in school. That is the job of the parents. I'm sorry that some parents are scolding APPS and the board for not taking their schedules into consideration when discussing a return to learn. The job of a public school is to educate children and prepare them for our future, not determine transportation and childcare issues. My husband and I both work full-time days, and we will figure it out with little to no help. Where there is a will, there is a way. It is best for our family and that our daughter remain remote. So we have chosen to keep her home. Maybe that is the difference for us. Although I feel it is late in the game, I really wish the district would have considered an all remote track with an all face-to-face track instead of face-to-face and hybrid. Families could decide what works for them and their children. Those teachers who have medical concerns or need to teach from home for whatever reason could teach the remote kid. Those teachers who want to be able to teach in person could teach face-to-face. This would eliminate the issue of hybrid versus full-time and potentially eliminate staffing issues. Students may have to change teachers, but it may be worth it in the long run. This would also help address the concerns of families who are currently online and not happy with the lack of interaction with AP teachers in the online programs. I do understand this option, especially at this point in the school year, may not sit well with your staff. Teachers do not like change, especially in the middle of the school year. Again, you will not make everyone happy. In talking with Mr. Darga in October, I thought this is what you were considering when discussing a hybrid model. I know that everyone involved tonight will make a thoughtful decision for kids to keep staff, students, and families in our community safe. Thank you again for all that you do for our kids. And there's one more that came in. This is from Laura Kowach. Laura, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Students with special needs are disproportionately affected by virtual learning and continue to fall further behind. Is there anything that can be done to meet their needs? In-person learning should be offered for these children as their needs are currently not being met by the school district. And that's it for now.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Tofelsky. We'll move on to item 8, old business, extended COVID-19 learning plans. Mr. Darga.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Miller, and I appreciate everybody joining us this evening online, and of course, to our board members that are here this evening as well. Since the extended COVID-19 learning plan was approved, the board must meet to reconfirm delivery of instruction, solicit public comment on how instruction is going to be delivered, and publicly announce weekly two-way interaction rates every 30 days. On January the 11th, 2021, the Board of Education voted to reconfirm a delivery mode of instruction, which included the continuation of remote learning while monitoring the 7-day rolling average for Wayne County. We're utilizing the COVID Act Now site for 7 consecutive days at a positivity rate of less than 5% for a safe return to in-person instruction per the COVID extended learning plan. In addition, the board requested a special meeting to be conveyed for further discussion after follow-up with the elementary and secondary hybrid committees. 2, further explore data sources currently used in the Wayne County data as opposed to focusing on an Allen Park specific data or data derived from communities in which we have accepted students through the Schools of Choice program, as well as consideration for staff coming from multiple communities and counties. Further explore the data threshold in regard to the positivity rate, and also receive an update from the Wayne County on the status of staff vaccinations. Our first one, hybrid committee update. Last week, the administration met with the elementary school, the elementary and secondary hybrid committee for further review of the proposed discussion at the January 11th Board of Education meeting. While there is support from teachers for a hybrid plan for the remainder of this school year, if the hybrid proposal is a short-term solution with in-person instruction as the long-term goal within a matter of weeks, teachers of the hybrid committee recommended remaining in remote instruction until determined safe for in-person instruction in order to provide stability and consistency in instructional delivery. Number 2 was our data source. When considering a data source, statistics for Wayne County was selected as schools of choice students attending Allen Park Public Schools come from 24 of the 33 districts in Wayne County. The district is currently at 29.5% school of choice enrollment. Another consideration is the composition of Allen Park Public Schools staff, which is from multiple communities as well as multiple counties. Since there is not a great variance between our incoming schools of choice community data and the Wayne County COVID Act Now data, for transparency purposes, my recommendation would be to continue using COVID Act Now data. And as you can see here, I know Dr. Tefelsky is actually working the slides for us. Dr. Tefelsky, did you want to talk a little bit just about the shared, the shared data slide where our students come from?
Yeah, so as Mr. Darga mentioned, we were looking at can everybody see the downriver positivity rate slide? So I was asked.
Can you make it a little bigger, maybe, Dr. Tefelsky? Can you make it bigger, possibly?
Yeah. I was asked last week to put together a list of area school districts. And when we were looking, what I essentially did was I took every downriver district which we took more than 5 students from. And so that includes all of these up at the top, every Wayne County district that we took more than 5 students from. But there were other districts where we had at least 1 student. We had at least 1 student from several other districts which are not included here. Riverview, we have a handful of students from. Plymouth Canton, we have a handful of students. Livonia. So it's not totally representative of the population. And then when you look at how we're weighting these districts, you have Dearborn, which is a much larger district, and we have much fewer students. And then you have Allen Park. And so when you look at those are just seen as 4.5 plus 38 divided by 2. And so it's just a straight average. There was a little bit of a discussion about weighting by the number of students that you have. But a student is a student. If they have the virus, they have the virus. So it's difficult to kind of determine how we should appropriately weight those things. Like we have 10% of our kids from Dearborn. Should Dearborn be 10%? But I think at the end of the day, when you come to COVID Act Now and you look at this graph, you can see exactly where we are with all 3 measures that we take into consideration. And you can see where we're at with daily new cases per 100,000, but then the positive test rate, which is the one we look closest at. So everybody kind of knows. The other thing that personally concerns me is this is something that I'm compiling based off another data source that they're compiling. And so if the person that's compiling the other data source makes a keystroke error, or if I make a keystroke error, that affects everything else that's on this sheet. So I do like the idea of I'm looking at this and I just go to our rolling average and I type in a 7.2. Everybody sees where it's at. It's extremely transparent and parents know where it's at. They're used to it at this point too. So I like the idea that was presented in that to stick with the Wayne County average. I think that it gives a more representative view of where our kids are coming from. It encompasses all of our students and then a majority of our staff, because again, not all of our staff live in Allen Park or the 12 districts or so that were listed in the downriver one.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Tafelsky. And again, I think it's important to repeat, as Dr. Tafelsky pointed out, and I know the graph may have been a little bit hard to see, but again, just to reemphasize, we've got students in Allen Park Public Schools that come from 24 of the Wayne County districts into our district. There's 33 districts in Wayne County. Again, 24 school districts are represented, made up by our student population, such as, and I'll read through these real quickly just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of where we have some of our students. From Royal Oak, we received 1 student. Detroit Public Schools, there's 35 students. Dearborn, 23. Dearborn Heights, 88. Melvindale, 189 students. Lincoln Park, 228 students join us. Plymouth Canton, 2. From River Rouge, we have 9 students. Romulus, 5 students. Taylor, 362 students join us. Trenton, there's 6 students. Wayne Westland, 2. Wyandotte, 8. Flat Rock is 2 students. Westwood, 3 students. Ecorse, 13 students. Gibraltar, 2. Huron, 4. Westwood is 1. Woodhaven, Brownstown, 19 students join us. Riverview is 3. Southgate, 86. Hamtramck, we have 1 student. Van Buren is also 1 student. So as you can see, we have quite a mix of students coming in. Therefore, again, administratively, we continue to support the COVID Act Now data site for Wayne County schools. The other area that we had was our third bullet point, and that's our data threshold, the positivity rate. And again, at this time, the administration supports, we had looked at the positivity rate. We were currently always at 5%, and that was a data point that we agreed on. We also know that the school district itself has done an amazing job with our entire staff to put in PPE. We've added several different security measures within the school systems, as I've stated several times in different meetings. I'm extremely proud that the Wayne County Health Department gave us a perfect 100% score on our safety matrix for Allen Park Public Schools. And of course, all of our plans have been approved by the state. Putting that into effect, and also with the governor's new safe school plan, as we know that she has reduced down some of her expectations and recommendations. We do fall within those guidelines. And therefore, that being stated, at this time, the administration does support raising the COVID positivity rate to reflect the district's safety initiatives implemented, in addition to considering that there was no evidence of school-associated spread of the virus while in-person instruction was going on, and that the district, again, received that 100% passing score on the Allen Park Public Schools mitigation plan. The Wayne County School Employees vaccinations, that was another big topic that we had also with our teachers during our hybrid committee meetings, and that was also a topic amongst the board members. The original plan announced administered vaccinations by the state to school employees on January 11th, stated that it has been pushed back to January 25th. When they first announced it, it had come out as January 11th. Then they made a public announcement that on the 25th, they were going to go ahead and start with the vaccines for our teacher groups. Wayne County continues to work through vaccinations for the prioritized individual groups. 1A, which is our school employee group, is 1B. The plan at this time is to administer vaccine to school employees by organization, as opposed to individual school employees scheduling their own appointments. Wayne County is still considering how to best choose and schedule schools. Are there priority cases, districts in person versus districts still remote, possible locations? So Wayne County is still working with the school districts. As you know, we did survey our staff. We gave that information. The staff vaccine, again, survey, there was 458 respondents. 364 staff members have indicated they wish to receive the vaccine. We are still waiting for an update through the Wayne County Health Department on how they wish to administer those vaccines. We know in our neighboring counties in Oakland County and Macomb County, they have already started their process. Their educators already are going into different areas and getting the vaccine. In Allen Park, we have had several staff members across the K-12 area have been able to get a vaccine, but they've done that on their own. And again, I encourage our staff, if they have the opportunity to schedule their own appointment, to please do so. We do not know when the vaccines will be available for our teachers. I actually had a meeting out by the Wayne County Health Department just a day or so ago, and it was actually last Thursday, and they had a big sign out in front that they were actually out of vaccines. So again, the goal of the implementation plan, our number 5 goal at our last board meeting was the implementation plan for return to in-person instruction. At the January 11th Board of Education meeting, the board reduced the number of consecutive days required to meet the targeted below 5% positivity rate from 14 consecutive days to 7 consecutive days to reflect the new December CDC issued quarantine guidelines from 14-day quarantine to a 7-day with 2 negative tests or a 10-day quarantine. In an effort to simplify and accelerate the return of students to in-person learning and to sustain a model that allows students to attend 4 full days per week, district administration recommends the consideration of the following in light of the state's goal recommendation to have all Michigan school districts offer an in-person learning option for students by March 1st. That the district include a metric point that will provide a date for a return to in-person pending the positivity rate metric per Wayne County or a new matrix data. It is important to note that the district had no evidence of school-associated spread of the virus while in-person instruction was ongoing. Another significant factor is that the district did receive the 100% score on the Allen Park Schools mitigation plan. Prior to resuming in-person instruction, all students will have the option to be in-person or virtual through Cabot Learning Elementary, coursework grades 6 through 8, or Edgenuity grades 9 through 12. All in-person students will attend four full days per week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesday would be a half-day remote. The afternoon will be dedicated to necessary special education meetings, assessments, and teachers will be available to assist students remotely. Schedules would be sent to staff and families by building administration. Secondary students would continue with the block schedule to minimize passing time and reduce exposure while in the building. At this time, Mr. Miller, I'd like to turn it back over to the board for discussion based on the 5 topics that I've shared with the group.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Darga, for all the information, and Dr. Tefelsky for the information shared. Let's go around one time and see if we can develop a motion that we can then go around as many times as we need to. We'll start with Dr. Warren.
Hi. So I'm clear, like I'm just asking questions that I have according to what Mr. Darga just said, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So my first one is just a comment. Last time that we were at our board meeting, I did ask collectively as an administrative group, were they ready to go back face-to-face? That answer was yes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. My second one is the hybrid committee that formed the hybrid plan. They now state they feel it's best to either just stay remote, like stay the course until we decide it's, safe to return, or until we decide it's safe to return face to face. That the hybrid plan, they said we should probably not go.
Well, so to be clear, yeah, when we met with the hybrid committee, the whole idea was that if we're going to toggle back and forth, the hybrid committee stated, let's not do that. If the ultimate goal is to get back in person, face to face, then let's not do a hybrid for 2 to 3 weeks. And then as the numbers continue to fall, go face to face. They stated that they would support a hybrid option if it was for the remainder of the school year. Okay. They also wanted to be sure that it was stated that obviously if we were going to go back to face-to-face, that they would hope that we would work with the teacher vaccines, that there is a timeline that has been put out, but we know that unfortunately now there are no vaccines to be put out. But they were voicing the concern that if we're not going to do the hybrid plan and we're going to wait face-to-face, they hope that coincides with the data that some vaccinations, first-round vaccinations, would be taking place.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Darga. I appreciate that. The hybrid committee, I know how hard they worked. But like them, it's very difficult when we flip-flop these kids from a parent perspective as well. So, that is very difficult. So I'd like to stay the course. So I definitely agree with that. And then my last one, just really quick, you said you were going to survey the teachers last time about how many of them are ready to return face-to-face and how many were not, but how many would be if it was like hybrid, right?
Correct.
Can you share that data with everybody? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. So we did survey the staff, and to be transparent, some of our staff members stated they were unable to respond at the time because they didn't have enough information. That meaning we don't know when the vaccine would actually be coming out, and that would impact possibly if they were going to have to stay within the building or take a leave. They also didn't know. It also depends if we were going to do the hybrid or do the remote. So we did get 167 responses. Out of the 167 responses, the question of, if we moved into a hybrid option, we had 157 staff members say that they would return. 10 staff members stated they may take a leave. Again, that's for the hybrid option. If we looked at coming back face-to-face, full face-to-face instruction, 153 teachers or staff members responded, stating they would definitely come back. 14 staff members indicated they may take a leave.
Okay, thank you. I just calculated that's not like 91.6%. So that said that they were ready to come back. All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Warren. Mrs. McDonald.
Okay, the data sources. No, the data threshold, the positivity rate. I do have a concern about extending it as high as 10%. I do thank Steve Martin for his work on developing the spreadsheet and showing us that, there's not that much difference between the 5% and a 7.5%, 8%. Psychologically, I think the 5% for our staff would carry some weight. So I think that's an important thing. We've decreased a lot of things. So like we're not taking temperatures. We went to a 7-day rolling average. Social distancing is going from 6 feet to 3 feet. There's a lot of changes all at once. And so I think, we need to be careful with how many more changes we throw into the mix. There's, just an observation with that. And I guess it's really, in terms of questions, what is our rating with the county? I know we were rated an E before, not on our mitigation efforts, but just in terms of, I don't know, whatever else they measure, the positive cases and things around us. Where are we at now?
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Felsky. He actually attended the meeting, but I believe actually Wayne County RESA no longer publishes.
Yeah, they don't grade us anymore. They just released that matrix that the downriver data that I pulled from. If you click that source matrix, that's all that they have now. They don't actually give us the grades anymore.
According to the health department.
According to that Wayne County Health Department meeting we had.
So
none of the districts are being graded anymore.
No, not to our knowledge, because I was talking to a couple of my colleagues and they used to actually rely on that rating, and they said they haven't seen it, and so they're switching to more of a data model. Some of them are just going with their gut, deciding when to come back, but they were getting graded and they're no longer able to find those grades. So if I'm wrong, I'm happy to go back on that, but we have not seen it.
I'm here to update that. And so I was wondering about how that some do rely on it. So, and I know that I've looked at it in the past, and we were given a rating of an E, and I was just wondering if we've moved from that spot. So thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. That's it for now. Thanks.
Okay, Ms. McDonald, point of clarity. Are you talking about the risk level?
I believe it is. I believe that is the risk level, yes.
Okay, so we weren't district-wide, we weren't rated as an E for anything that we were doing. That was the risk level that they had assigned based on the data.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I didn't know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Klein.
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I wake up at 3 a.m. and you can't sleep and you mull the stuff over. And in my mind, it all comes down to risk assessment. And, it's risk assessment with not enough data. It's risk assessment with not enough history. It's risk assessment without, all the pieces you would want to make good decisions. And so you're left kind of weighing these two. I guess what I'm doing here is trying to lay out my thinking. I don't know if that's going to be helpful, but at least helps me to think about it and put it out in public. But, we're weighing two things, right? Keeping kids home, it's probably safer, but it has consequences, right? Kids don't do well when they're not in school. They need to be in person. They need socialization. They need teachers. They need to be around a community that cares for them. And for some people, for some kids, this is the best part of their day, right? Is being in class. And so so we know we want them in school. Everybody wants that, right? That's a universal. We all want them in school. And then you got to weigh the risk. What is the risk of that? And we know that putting kids back in has got some risk. There's no way to argue really against that. It'll have a consequence, right? Someone will get very sick. Someone will die. That seems extreme, but in reality, that's going to happen in COVID. We know that, right? We're going to hit 500,000 people in the U.S. by the end of the year. By the end of 1 year of COVID time, we know that we're going to lose 500,000 people in the U.S. Some of them are going to be related to groups, and that includes schools. So, that doesn't necessarily mean we can't put kids back in school, but you got to look at it. These are serious things on both sides, and so there's big risk when we talk about doing this. So those are the things that we kick around, and there's consequences. We keep kids home, right? There's going to be kids that have nutritional issues or that have very serious psychological issues that may they live with forever. So there's risk there too. And so we're trying to weigh all this out, and it's done in a world where we don't have enough data. We don't have enough information. And so I guess I don't have a whole lot more to say, except that, I don't know, the 5% keeps coming up. I tried to find the history of where we got to that 5%. And I keep finding 3% and 5% from a Harvard study and from the CDC. The
CDC and Johns Hopkins was 5%.
Yeah, their indicators for dynamic school decision making continues to say that 3% is best, 3 to 5% is okay, and then you start getting over 5 to 8, you start getting into this kind of moderate risk level, and then you talk about all the things you can do to mitigate, and we do our best. We really are. I think there are some really good things we're trying to do. The 6-foot thing we can't do if we don't go to a different model, right? We can't do that with every kid back in school, and so that's a ding we would have to take. It's one that we either have to figure out another plan or say, okay, that one we're not going to cover. So that adds to the risk side as well. Vaccines are close. They're really close. That gives me more sleep issues, right? Like, what if we waited another week and we could get more people vaccinated, and that saves, some long hauler from having to deal with COVID forever? I don't know. So that's really, I'm not sure that's helpful, but that's kind of where I'm at. I figure it's just good to share that thinking. Yeah, I guess I like the 5%. That feels safer. I know that comes with risk in other ways, but I guess that's kind of where I land. I'll stop. Anybody have questions for me, or is that, at least was my thinking clear? Kind of where I'm headed? All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Mr. I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you for summarizing how you're going about it. I know that your opinion and your thought process through all of this has been extremely valued. I know that I know you take this extremely seriously, and so you sharing your thought process is very much appreciated.
Well, and I think it's important the community knows we all do, right? I said earlier to this board that it's a great group of people that are working, really hard at trying to make sense of this in a really difficult time. And I think we've all done it really well in that we've been respectful and we've tried to understand each other. And like I said, we may not agree today. There's a good chance at the end of this meeting, we will have been a split vote on what we decide to do. And that's okay. We'll make a decision as a group, and we'll live by that, and we'll move forward. But, I appreciate your time. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Klein. Mrs. Flipiak.
I actually have just one question for this time. You said during the staff vaccine survey, we had 364 that indicated they wish to receive the vaccine. Do we know, was there any indication of the other 94? I know that some people have had access to vaccines through their healthcare providers. Do we have any rate of how many of our teachers already have had that first vaccine, just out of curiosity?
No, we do not. So when we put out the survey, that was pretty much right before people were kind of finding their own route to vaccines. Those staff members who are choosing not to is a variety of reasons, some medical, and others just aren't ready yet. But we have had and I don't want to guess the number, but several people have reported back to my office. Small groups of teachers have kind of been able to get lucky and head over to Wayne County Health Department and get the vaccine. And it was interesting. One teacher called, they found out several teachers went, they got it, and then they went that afternoon, they were turned away. So, we've also had several staff members who've gone to outside St. Joseph's. We've had some teachers drive all the way over towards Pontiac to get in. So people are finding ways, and so again, we've had teachers that have even gone over to Monroe County. So they're finding ways through, whether it's their own health provider or through tips through friends, and they're just hitting those phone lines. We've got people who've got every single cell phone in their house lined up, keep hitting redial until they can actually make an appointment because it fills up so fast. So
Mrs. Flippy, I'm sorry to intervene. I do see Mr. Klein wants to follow up on that specific question. If you don't mind letting him interject for a moment.
No,
It's always dangerous to share anecdotal data points, but I think this one actually has. So my wife's a teacher at Benny, and in that communication between Benny staff, this is not an exact number. I can't give you an exact number because she may have missed somebody. But in the communication they've had at Benny only, again, so don't extrapolate this beyond Benny. I don't know if it's valid. I think we can argue about 20% of the sort of teaching and I'm going to say teaching staff, but that includes sort of a broad picture of teaching staff. It appears that close to 20% may have been able to get a vaccine first dose in the last week. But again, that's still a little bit of a rough number, and that's just Benny that I can talk about.
Yeah, I was just curious and teasing out that data because I know my own staff at my own building. I have quite a few who already have, and I just wasn't sure if we had indicated. I mean, I understand that people have many reasons why they don't get vaccinated or why they may choose not to, but I was just curious if we knew how many of those folks had already started the process. That's why they said they weren't interested. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. And Mike, I appreciate your piece of anecdotal data, which is good to know. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Flipiak, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Mrs. Lukey.
Hi, thank you. I have a couple concerns, couple questions. One of my concerns is regarding when no spread gets referenced when school was in, because school was in such a short amount of time that it's concerning to me to be weighing so much, such a big decision on such a very small amount of time. And it was another concern is that it was my understanding with the rate increase that would be suggested if we went the hybrid route. And the one and only conversation that I think I can recall having regarding that was, and if hybrid gets approved, then we can discuss that rate increasing. So if someone could speak further so that there's clarity, I was on a hybrid committee, and I guess I have fears that the community is going to think this small group of people made this big decision when that's not necessarily the case. It's something examining now, not as a result exclusively of our group working together.
Yeah, and I didn't read it that way at all. Okay. I agree with you that this was not a discussion with the hybrid committee, nor did that suggestion come out from the teachers at all, nor the administration. Several schools in the Wayne County area through the superintendent group have been talking about looking at the raising the positivity rate, and that's actually how that dialogue actually started. So our neighbors in Southgate actually were one of the first ones last week. They had a board meeting. I was in contact with, they have a new superintendent, Ms. Irvine. Sharon and I were talking several times on the phone, and she was telling me that their board had taken action. They raised the positivity rate. They were one of the schools that adopted our system. They adopted our data point. And so she had called me to ask if we were looking to also raise it because they were at the 5% based on what we had done. And I had told her at that time that we had our meeting coming up. We had already had a meeting and we had a new meeting coming up, and they had raised theirs actually to 9% in in Southgate for their elementary and their middle school, and then they left it at 5% at their high school. So that's how that discussion started. So yes, to be clear, that was not a hybrid committee discussion, and that did not come through a recommendation by that committee at all.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And you elaborated a little on why hybrid is not happening, but again, just for clarification's sake, because I feel like there are going to be a lot of people watching who are going to feel extremely disappointed. I think they were watching tonight thinking to hear whether hybrid may be approved or not approved, and they tuned in and it's like, oh, no, hybrid's not happening at all. If you could maybe just elaborate a little bit more on where that motion is coming from, because the administration's not here. When I was in the hybrid meeting to see their faces, there was 3 gentlemen in mine, and 2 of them my kids have been with for years. So it's like I've said, we're not well acquainted because you have my kids. I'm not checking in, and I trust you. You've had them, you've got them. I want to trust your plan. They were so convincing, the head up and down they have full faith in what the district has set up to go full face to face. So getting that conviction from them made me feel at ease. And now I just feel like people are coming tonight and just hearing that hybrid's not an option. Is it an option or not an option?
Well, that's not my decision. That's a board decision, actually.
Okay.
And as everybody knows, as superintendent of schools, I don't vote on any plan. I just make proposals and share, recommendations and information. So what we were saying is the hybrid committee had stated if the hybrid plan was only going to be used for a short time and COVID data continued to fall and the district was going to go back to face at some point, then let's not go through the motions and putting our parents through it, as well as our staff. There's a lot of moving pieces with the hybrid plan, especially as many of our parents have stated through email and just earlier through comments, the idea of the drop off, the pickup, and all of these different schedules. So when it was determined that the hybrid would not be for the remainder of the year, then we would rather just say, hey, listen, then let's work with the data point, stay remote until the data meets whatever threshold we meet. And at that time, it was 5%. Now, the board could say, hey, listen, we still see value in the hybrid. These are board decisions to come back and say, let's create a suggested motion that then the district would then maintain a hybrid schedule. That's not my decision to make. I'm just sharing what the committee stated of simply, if we don't want to flip flop, and the administration agrees with that. They agree with the committee's recommendation of let's not flip flop. If we're not going to do a hybrid, and that's why I stated earlier when I was talking earlier about the hybrid plan, the staff, the hybrid committee members fully support a hybrid plan if it runs through June. They felt that if we're going to keep hybrid plan, if the board adopts a hybrid plan, then there's no more talk of full face-to-face in person. If it's going to be a hybrid plan until June, they support that. But if we're going to go back to face-to-face at some point, then let's not even do the hybrid plan. That's what we were expressing. Hopefully that's made a little bit more sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. And I appreciate the time spent on clarifying that, because I think the bottom line and what it's really important for parents and guardians to hear is that the end game is full face-to-face.
Correct.
That leads us right back to, what's safe. None of that has been definitively laid out. But we're right there on that cusp where they have to choose. Are they going to go virtual or are they going to ride out? Because it seems like everyone I talk to, there's no doubt that the kids back into the building is what everybody wants. They feel confident in the measures that have been taken. And to me, it seems like it's go time. Like, we need to make a decision what's going to be that percent and what's going to be the date. And I feel like parents need to know that that is what the plan is intended to be for the rest of the school year. That if we vote full face-to-face, it's full face-to-face. It's not flip-flopping. There's not going to be pushback and we're back in again and voting again and now maybe this again. So I just feel like it's really, really important for parents to come to that realization that when they're in, they're going back in. And I know people have said it so many times at school today. This is a concern of mine that I'm not sure if the parents are understanding. School today isn't typical school. So if their child goes to school and now they're like parents are celebrating, they think they're going back to work. You know, it's an end all cure all. It's not. If your child shows up and they have symptoms, I'm dizzy, I have a headache. How is that child under, what am I trying to say? What are the circumstances for that child? If they end up, those are COVID symptoms. Are they home for 10 days? Are they home until they can present a negative COVID test?
So, you know, and again, now we're kind of talking about something a little bit different, but, you know, we'll continue to go and follow, you know, our mitigation plans, you know, and that's guidance through the Wayne County Health Department. So the Wayne County Health Department is the one who works with all school districts. When we have a COVID-related, you know, issue, whether it is a student or a staff member, we have to call Wayne County Health. They then help us determine our next steps. And that's the way it was even back in October, so that's not changed. So, and I understand what you're saying, Ms. Lukey, and I'm glad that we had a minute to, you know, again, talk a little bit about, you know, hybrid plans and face-to-face and not going back and forth. You know, the only thing, what we're suggesting is whatever the motion is, and that's why we created this meeting tonight. This meeting tonight is an action meeting. We will leave tonight with a plan. The parents will then know that we have voted. What happens next is we will create a communication tomorrow. We will then outline again what happened tonight, whatever that is, to our parents tomorrow. Then we will take whatever time is needed over the next couple of days, that the principals will then start sending out their own letters to their parents with more specific data. So again, the only chance after we receive our data tonight, the board votes, the only time we would then go back to remote is if the data states we need to go back to remote, or the governor comes in and says we're going back to remote, or Wayne County Health Department says, hey, the numbers are rising, like they did in November. They sent a letter out stating we strongly recommend schools then return to remote. So we will not be, after tonight, whatever we decide, you know, we will not be talking about the other plans.
Okay. And when do I go on with my other concerns? Do I lay them all out now, or
Yeah, why don't we just keep it going?
Pardon me?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Ms. Lukey, yeah, you've got the floor now. Go ahead.
If a child's in school, because it's my understanding from talking to a staff member that when we were back in school in October and someone came down and they were dizzy, had a headache, that student couldn't return to school until they had a negative COVID test. So
Correct, based on Wayne County Health Department.
It's so important, I feel, for parents to realize these things, because we know kids go to school with sniffles and coughs, and they won't be able to. If you send them to school like that and those are COVID symptoms, you're not back at work sending Susie to school with a sniffle and a cough. You're at home again. You've just told your employer you can go back to work, but you can't necessarily go back to work if your child gets a cold, right?
That's correct. So I do want, and I'm going to have Dr. Tefelsky wants to jump in here. However, please know that as time has passed, they've also, you know, the CDC, Wayne County Health has also updated their guidelines. We've also on our website have posted updated, you know, charts for our parents to follow. Dr. Tefelsky, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so Oakland County Health Department, I believe Wayne County Health Department, switched from just simply one symptom of like the sniffles to having the sniffles and something else in order to be to be considered. Can you repeat? I'm sorry. sorry about that. She made an appearance again. The sniffles and something else, a fever and something else. And I believe Oakland County has also adopted that. But with the change in CDC guidelines, students can come back 7 days from that with 2 negative tests. So let's say they did show up with the sniffles and had a headache or something, which would technically be 2 symptoms. They could quarantine for 7 days, get 2 negative tests, and come back. There are also situations in which the Oakland County or the health department, excuse me, even the Wayne County Health Department was accepting notes from doctors. Saying that this is a chronic symptom of my child. Sorry, I had to shut that off. 5-year-olds are unpredictable. Saying this is a chronic symptom of my child. It's not COVID. You do not have to send them for 2 negative tests and 7-day quarantines every time. But as Mr. Darga said, the binders have been updated to reflect some of these things. So we'll follow those things. Go ahead, Mr. Darga, sorry.
Just to draw your attention, again, we have this available on our website, but there's also for all of our parents, they can go to Wayne Risa. We had published as Allen Park Public Schools, we sent it to all of our parents, we will continue to do so. There is a new, and I know I'm trying to show it, but there's a new case scenario, and these were very, very helpful to our parents as well as our staff members. And we actually had these posted at one of our secretaries' areas. These are scenarios, these are updated scenarios, and there is actually 8 different scenarios now that they've added in, and it walks you through what happens. So if your child is this or what is this, then you kind of walk right through the entire scenario. That's what we use as a district as guidance. So again, and we will share all of this information. It's already on our website. We will make sure all of our parents get this in an email format. And this helps. So when a student does come to school, and a teacher sends them back to the office because there's a symptom, we pull these documents out and we follow exactly what this says. We are encouraging, again, we are no longer, per the governor, taking temperature checks at the building. And so all families will be taking temperature checks at home. And we are looking at, Dr. Tefelsky is working with a company that we are currently using for all staff members. Every morning at 6 a.m., all of our staff members, me included, get a text message on our phone. We have to log in. We click the link. It brings us up to a screen. We have to answer questions on our phone. We then hit the submit button, and it actually gives us a green badge if we pass, and that's what we're able to use, that we've gained access into our buildings. All families will be getting that as well, so every morning the parent can log in. If they don't have that system, there's there's an actual checklist that's provided that they can just read and go through the motions with their children at home.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I've had so many emails and questions come in, so I just greatly appreciate you taking the time, because a lot of those are concerns that other members are having in the community. So I just want to do my part in trying to communicate some of their questions and concerns.
Of course.
As far as socialization goes, when they say their children aren't getting socialization, that's why they need to be in school. Struggle with understanding that because we're not in stay-home orders. So if your child needs socialization, I don't mean to sound insensitive or not compassionate, get them socialization. Like, we're not in stay-home orders. There's safe ways that you can go about right now, doing things with your kids. My concern is there's just sort of a lot of change, yet nothing's changed in a way, with going full face-to-face and potentially upping the rate. Even President Biden said today at the inauguration, he feels like the worst potentially is still to come in the next few weeks. So that makes me highly concerned for our students and our staff, because even though there's been a huge amount of incredible efforts made, we still have the same ones that led us back to the hybrid committee. We don't have room, and we don't have space for kids to eat with their masks off at lunch. And I'm going to end with that for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mrs. Lukey. Mr. Martin.
Hello. So I guess there's a little bit of an advantage to going later because most of the questions I was going to ask, a lot of them have been asked and answered. Like the temperature was one. And I agree with you, Mike, 100%. You know, this decision has got me up late at night, skipping a lot of things. You know, my family was out. Oh, and you want to go in the hot tub? I can't. I'm going to crunch some numbers on this, and it wouldn't be good if my laptop fell in the hot tub. But so yeah, very concerned with it. I appreciate all the letters and calls I've received from multiple people. I've read them all, and I don't take them lightly. So there's a lot of concern on doing the right thing. Very concerned about, as you mentioned, the kids. Nutritional issues and psychological issues, that's extremely important to me. We're here for the kids and the families as well, but we have to do what's right for the kids. So appreciate that. One of the questions I have, and just to be clear, Mike, you mentioned the vaccine. I know it's been pushed out from the 11th to the 25th. Has it been pushed out further from the 25th, or we don't know yet?
No, we've not been given a date from Wayne County Health Department. We were told the 25th, but we're also being told that there's no vaccines. We also know that we've had some of our own Allen Park police officers were scheduled to take a vaccine already as first responders, and they were turned away as well. There was no vaccine for them. So it's just unfortunately, it's one of those issues that we have a date, but we don't really know the end result when that'll even start.
So it could be the 25th, maybe not.
Correct.
Okay. Do we know by chance how many students have left Allen Park Public Schools to go to other schools for face-to-face?
So we don't know the answer of why they left if it was face-to-face, but we know we've lost about relatively on enrollment alone. There's about 111 students. So if we look at the enrollment for January 2020 compared to January 2021, there's about 111 students right now that we are short. And again, there's a variety of reasons perhaps, but as Dr. Tefelsky and I were talking just the other day, I believe because of the state of affairs that we're in, Michigan, the state of Michigan announced we are close to 50,000 students statewide have left public education for whatever reason. Talking with some of the superintendents in neighboring districts, 111 students is a lot of students, but compared to some of the other districts surrounding us, it's a relatively small number compared to what they're seeing.
So what are the plans? Are there plans that can these kids, if they decided to come back, I mean, it's only 3%, but let's say the vote or whatever the reason was, we're going to come back. Are there options? And I'm just looking at that as capacity level. And it's only 3%, but 111 does help with the distancing issue, but it also hurts from a finance perspective as well. Just so I'm sure Tiffany knows that. Yeah,
that's a hit. But I think the important thing to remember that any student, if a student resides and the family is within Allen Park, they have a right to return back to our district. So it does not mean, what I'm trying to say is we're not going to take a school of choice student. So if they don't live within Allen Park school bounds, we're not going to take them. But if they reside within our district with their address, they can easily state that we are looking to return and we would have to take them back.
Okay. I know you mentioned Southgate has increased their rate and they're going back January 25th.
Correct.
And I believe Riverview has never been away. I think Trenton's kind of been face-to-face. I think Wyandott's been maybe in a hybrid, but majority face-to-face. Do you know how many other schools by chance surrounding districts have recently decided to maybe make a change to their plans based on the new guidelines?
Well, I think virtually pretty much all 33 schools at this time in our area within Wayne County, especially the downriver area, all have the exact same discussions we are right now. That's why Southgate actually met last week. With the governor coming out with her recommendation for a March 1st timeframe of offering an in-person, in-class instruction, anybody who was remote like we were have come back to the drawing board to make a plan that would help get our students back into the buildings, which is why she then stated on some of the restrictions that she had previously mentioned back in October, she's now lifted those, to allow schools to, again, accommodate students back into it.
Okay, and with regard to the 94 or 92% of teachers that said they would come back, that's sufficient coverage if we do go back. I mean, the last meeting said there were 6 to 8 teachers, and now there's 14. So it's increased a little bit.
Correct. Yeah, there's up to possibly 14. And again, at any given time, teachers may say they would like to go on a leave. We are very fortunate. We've got a really good pool of substitute teachers that we utilize. Mrs. Bly is our person who kind of works with our substitute teachers, works with our agencies, our third-party agency. She is phenomenal. She gets people lined up. We have building subs. So I believe we've got coverage. Is it ideal? It is not. We always want our own teachers in front of our own students. But there are times, and some of these are also not even COVID related. We've had some of our teachers leave for maternity. There's been other health issues. So, at any given year, we do see teachers taking leaves. Unfortunately, with COVID, we've seen just some more, but we have been able to kind of fill those gaps. The other thing that we're fortunate in Allen Park is we also have a lot of student teachers that join us from the area colleges, universities, and I believe in just the first semester, I think we had 5, and so we're able to also once they graduate, they're now certified teachers, and we try to get them right back on board and get them subbing with us also because they know our kids.
Okay, so as everyone here knows, I spent a lot of time crunching the numbers today, and I do see the rates dropping, in some cases significantly. So that said, we're only as good as the numbers we have today. But as Jeanette mentioned, Ms. McDonald mentioned, the difference between the 7.5 and the 5% rate is really only a couple days in terms of this overall rate. So it's encouraging to see that the numbers are going down, but the caution here is, especially after the holidays, we would have expected those numbers to go up, and that's what everybody was saying. After the New Year's time frame, these numbers are going to go up, and the data just doesn't support that. They're going down. I mean, there was a little bit, but for the most part, they're going down. So that's encouraging, and I think from the data we're seeing that John's passed out and we've gone and researched, that's an encouraging sign. But again, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow with the new strain and things like that. So that's all I had. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I guess I don't really have too many questions, but I just do want to follow up and say it again. In fact, I do this often enough. At some point, Mr. Klein's going to send me a bill to start collecting royalties, that I just say everything he said is really important. This is a tough one, and it has been since we've been talking about it for months and months now. And I think we initially passed this plan back in, what was it, September, when we passed this plan to use the 5% number and the 14-day average. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah. And, for me, in my mind, what has changed between now and then? Well, 4 additional months of kids being out of school has made me, in my mind, think that we should, or that I can accept some incremental change to the data number that we use. I'm comfortable because Mike's risk reward, balance assessment is exactly right. And in September, where I was on it, is the risk was still outweighing any reward of using a higher number. With an additional 4 months at home, I'm reaching the point where I am willing to see some incremental adjustment to that number, in the hopes that by going just an incremental amount, we can both accomplish returning safely and getting kids back. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that's why I'm willing to kind of bump that number a little bit myself. But it doesn't mean that that's an easy decision by any stretch of the imagination. I think all of us receive lots of emails. I know I do. And I read them all, and we're all in this together. Everybody on this board, which, by the way, is a model of how to have thoughtful civil discourse with each other. Thank you to everybody for that. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to stop talking. Turn it over to Mr. Darga. Mr. Darga, do you have a proposed motion now that we've gone around once?
I do. And again, as the board knows, I will read the motion. And again, there's discussion after that before we vote. So I am going to, within my motion, I have a percentage based on the discussion we've had of looking at raising the number a slight bit. The board can then, see fit to have the discussion. Also, the board knows they can change that motion as well. If they decide they would rather see a different number, they're able to have that dialogue and make that vote. This is a recommended suggested motion. That the Allen Park Board of Education reconfirm the mode of instruction, which includes the continuation of remote learning while monitoring the 7-day rolling average for Wayne County, utilizing the COVID Act Now site for 7 consecutive days at a positivity rate of less than 7.5% for a safe return to in-person instruction per the COVID extended learning plan. The Board of Education will reconfirm how instruction will be delivered every 30 days.
Motion.
Support.
Okay. Thank you for that. It's been moved and supported. I would anticipate here, unless everybody is done after round one, we can go around a couple of times, but try to get, if you have something to address on it, let's try to do it in round one. So round two really is a cleanup on it, and then we'll take a vote on it. Okay. We'll start back at the top again. By the way, I put everybody in order tonight, just by seniority. Who's been around a while? So nobody feel bad about being picked first or last, please. We'll start again with Dr. Warren.
Okay, sorry. Hey, real quick, I did just get a message from 2 different parents that are out of district, but they're school of choice. They freaked out because they thought they heard you say they can't come back. But that was just if they left already, right? So just we can clarify that really quick.
Okay, there's no part of Allen Park.
A different school, they then can't come back. So I just want to make sure that was clear because, I could feel them sweating bullets through.
No, they are part of our district. No worries.
Okay, good. And also too, I had a hospital staff also send me a message while you guys were talking about vaccinations. And when she just went in to get her second vaccination, there was a second line at Oakwood that had Beaumont. It's like I'm going to say Hudson's, but show my age. But they had a second line that was for the general public of 1B. So, 65 and older and teachers and stuff like that. So, like you said, Mr. Darga, be sure to, try your health portals and stuff like that to get out there. But I just wanted to share that because I thought that was important. Okay, so like Mr. Miller stated, the 7.5%, moving it up a little bit. And like like Mike Klein said earlier, we had no clue. We still don't know. And, literally I'll wake up at 2 a.m. and I can't go back to bed, right? Because my mind just starts going and, I want to be respectful and, all of this stuff to everybody. But at the same point, like Steve Martin said, it is about the kids, and trying to do what's best for the vast majority of our children. So, I definitely would agree with Gordon on the 7.5. I can't lie. I would actually like to go a little bit above, but I'll be fine with the 7.5, only because I don't want to see us flip-flopping. I don't want to see us getting into school at 7.5 and then 3 weeks later it goes up to 8%. We're back out, like that does, the flip-flopping is really tough. It's really tough on the families. It's really tough on the teachers. It's really tough on the staff. But I definitely could do the 7.5. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Warren, thank you. Mrs. McDonald.
Okay, I would feel comfortable with something a little less than 7.5. I would put it earlier at 7 for myself. So I'm going to have to think about this one a little bit. But in this motion, I don't see anything where it says anything about Wednesday being, half day remote Is that not part of this? Is this 5 full days?
That's not part of the motion. The motion is really just, we're establishing the fact that, again, we're going to, establish the data point.
I know, but then, okay.
But not the plan. I'm sorry to interrupt, but not the plan, right, Mike? We're talking
Correct.
about, we're reconfirming the mode of instruction, which is what the current in-person mode of instruction previously approved would continue to be. We're just modifying the data point for what we're watching. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct. Our in-person plan does have the Wednesday half-day instruction.
Okay,
Okay,
just wanted to make
sorry.
sure.
Yep, that's good to do. It's good to be on the same page for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so I guess that was my big question. I still think that we have some opportunities to do things a little differently, even in face-to-face. And, I was talking to Mr. Darga about that today, as well as a couple of teachers, to see if my thinking was clear. And what I was thinking is that since they're online anyways, right now, and everybody's used to that format, and students have been instructed to come, when we do go back to school, that they should be bringing their Chromebooks with them fully charged. So my assumption was that they would be using them. So my question was, well, why can't teachers still present their lessons using their Chromebooks, so that those kids that are at home for whatever reason, I mean, even our kids that have to quarantine, wouldn't miss out on instruction? I know the number would be fluid in terms of how many kids would be in a classroom, but it could never be more than the assigned number of students in the classroom. It could only be less. And during this time when we're waiting for teachers to get vaccinated, that might be a little bit safer method. Our parents might feel more comfortable with that for short term. I think that instead of jumping in, both feet, and that if we kind of wade in and, we're making some of these changes, we're going against CDC with changing the positive test rate. If we vote on this, we're also going against CDC recommendations on 3 foot versus 6 foot social distancing. So, maybe if we can figure out a way for the short term to reduce numbers in our classrooms, and I don't know how all the teachers would feel about this. And I do know that face-to-face instruction differs from online instruction, but I also know that this is a period of flux. And as now President Biden said, he feels the worst is still coming upon us. But I know we can't make plans based on that, but we could have our plan in place, and then transitions are more seamless. So those are my thoughts on this.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Mr. Klein.
Thanks. Just some clarification. The spreadsheet, I know we've got people out there looking already. The spreadsheet out there that's there, probably a John question. The spreadsheet on the website, that's the 7-day, that number that you're seeing, the last number you'll see for the 20th is the 7-day average already.
It's a 7-day average to this point. And it goes, I extended it down to the January.
Yeah, okay. Okay. And so right now it's 7.2 today?
We were 7.2, so or 7.2 as of the 17th, because remember, it's a trailing average.
Right, but that number, so what are we taking? Are we talking about so when that number hits below 7.5?
That's when we make the announcement. So really, we are making the announcement based on data that's 2 days old.
And we're saying we've already hit that threshold, so we'd be going back as soon as
it's got to be 7 days in a row, though.
7 days of that number in a row.
Of under 7.5, yeah. So we are not under 7.5 yet. So
that's a 7-day average. That's changed to a 7-day average sometime a month ago or so.
Yeah, from a 14-day.
We want 7 days in a row of that 7-day average.
Exactly.
And we've had how many days?
0.
No, today counts. The 20th would be 1.
Well, yeah, but when you average it with the previous 7 days, we're at 7.8.
Okay, all right.
Does that make
Mr. Klein, would you mind, Dr. Tefelsky, if we're going to talk about that, could you share that slide again? Maybe everybody can see.
Yep, for sure.
That's good, Gordon.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, can you zoom in to just like the last 3 or 4 days?
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah, I got you. Okay, so I was looking at. Okay,
Yeah.
I see.
So this 7.2 is directly from COVID Act Now, which is an average of the previous 7 days. That's what COVID Act Now does. And then this column takes a 7-day average from here. And when this number right here gets below 7.5 for 7 consecutive days, on the 8th day, we announce that we're going back. Now, in the past, we've done it a little bit earlier just because we know that it's coming. Like, I have a manual calculation on this third tab that I haven't updated recently, but this is the raw numbers. So I update this when we're getting close so that as a school district, we can make an informed decision a little bit earlier. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
So when this number hits 7.5 or hits below 7.5, so like if the numbers stay below, right around 7.5 here, then we would be below 7.5 down here in the mid-January. And then we'd need 7 days of that, or like January 22nd, January 23rd.
Mr. Mark?
Yeah, just a quick question. So today on the COVID Act website, the 20th registered 7.2. So you're saying this 7.2 in your spreadsheet?
So it's not the 20th on COVID Act Now.
Right.
Here. It's the 17th because they do what's called, they call it a trailing average.
Yep.
And so the most recent day is January 17th, updated as of the 20th. Hi, Lucy. Why do you come when I'm talking every time?
Okay. The data we looked at earlier that I based a lot of some calculations off of, we had on the 19th, 8.93, but you're saying that's actually 7.5. This.
I'm sorry. I was muted. What was the question?
So today we saw 7.2 in your file, which is, from the 17th.
Yep.
In the file that I looked at earlier today, the number previous to that was 8.93, but you're saying it's actually 7.5?
Yeah. So COVID Act Now must have redone it because when we had it yesterday, these numbers were different. And so I don't know if there was an issue with the long weekend or what had happened. But I just recalculated the last 7 days here because it changed it changed today, this morning when I woke up, because when I had updated the site yesterday, we were still in the low 8s, or low 8. I think we were at 8.2. Mike, you and I were talking when we were in my office yesterday. And so I think we were at 8.2 yesterday, which would have been the 16th. But now on COVID Act Now, the 16th is 7.5. So I went back and I recalculated the 7-day average. So that, and again, they take, if you click here, you can see their data sources, and they scrape from county, state, and national data. And so there must have been an update at some point that changed where it was.
Okay, because if I update my spreadsheet just with the last couple of days, 7.5, 7.9, that's even more favorable to reaching that 7.5% rate, as the drop's about the same percentage-wise. So, but
yeah, I mean, so like as you get to, I guess I shouldn't have stopped sharing my screen, but as you add on January 18th something in the 7s, you drop off a mid-8s number.
Right.
Does that make sense? So like, whoops. So like this number right here. So let's just, you can kind of see what happens if we just repeat another day of 7.2. You can see how significantly that drops everything, because you're replacing an 8.5 with a 7.2. So that's going to throw everything off. And I know you guys understand that, but that's just for everybody out there who's wondering and not quite sure why numbers fluctuate so quickly. Every time you add a new number at the bottom, a number at the top drops off. Mr. Martin, to your point, Mr. Klein, as we're improving here and our numbers are going down, the old numbers were pretty bad. And so every time one of those really bad numbers drops off and a really good number drops on, it has a huge effect on what happens in the average data.
Mr. Martin, I'm curious, does that match the data that you have? And would you like to share that screen to show us, or are you okay?
I just updated it based on the last several days in John's file. So I went through it, and it's close, very, very close.
And Steve, Mr. Martin, you were just extrapolating out a couple of days, or did you actually run the data from the Wayne County COVID site?
I ran it from the Wayne County COVID site with the numbers you had earlier. Okay. I put in the 7.2, and I used an average drop over 7 days.
Gotcha.
Because we were using the 7-day return, or the 7-day figure. So.
Yeah, and I'll update the raw Wayne County data tomorrow, just so everybody knows. If you want to check in that third tab, if anybody in the public wants to check in that third tab, it'll be updated. So you can you can get an idea over here where we're at with our 7-day average and our 14-day average.
Can you, I just need one more number. We had an 8 and 8.1, the number previous to that, and that would be my 7-day. If we're going up 7.2, 7.5.
Yep, 8.81 and then 8.4 and 8.5. 8.4 on January 11th and 8.5 on January 10th.
We're fortunate to have Dr. Tefelsky, Mr. Martin, and Mr. Klein are all data people. So we have a lot of data to look at. So
I did want to add one thing while I had my mic off. This reminded me. Mr. Darg and I talked earlier. Our vendor that we've been getting PPE from now has medical grade N95 masks in. And so we will be providing this to every staff member. We're thinking we're going to provide 2. We're working with them, but it's a medical grade N95. It's not the KN95 or anything like that. It's the actual one. It fits around the back of your neck and the top of your head. And I kind of feel like Superman when I'm wearing it because it's like so tight around your face, and it has a nice nose piece and everything. So I think staff members will have this as an option to them. They can choose to use it, or they can continue to use their cloth masks if they want. But we want to make sure that they feel safe coming back into the building as well.
I hate to interject, but I want to get back to Mr. Klein during his time here.
Sorry, Mike.
I'll be pretty quick. No worries. That's good discussion. I'll be pretty quick. So in my mind, the 7.5 is too high for me, but that's, we'll figure that out as a board. But that's too high for me. But the concern I have is that I feel like we're really close to trying to pick a number that gives us an outcome rather than a number that's declared safe for a medical defensible reason or a scientific defensible reason. So CDC gave us a number, and we don't have any reason to go off that other than we're kind of getting tired of being in COVID, which I get. I mean, I really do. And like when I look at this risk assessment, if someone said COVID's going to be here for the rest of our lives, then I would say, all right, we got to pick another number because we can't have kids out of school for the rest of their lives. That has consequences beyond what I would be comfortable with. I think I fall probably on the safer side, but at some point there's got to be at some point there is an end game that we have to say that's too long. But I guess what I'm looking for is some reason to say that 7.5 is safe enough now when it wasn't safe enough before. And I don't think we have that information. The last thing we saw was, 3% was awesome, 5% was pretty good, and 5 to 8 was starting to push into moderate. Anything over 8 was considered, I don't know, the 4th category, and there's only a 5th category that was like reckless. So, it pushes too high for me. That said, if we end up as a board voting for 7.5, even if we're split, but if we end up voting for that, I'd love to make sure we come back to the conversation about making this could happen fast, right? It could mean that we could meet this in the next couple of days. But if we did that, if we made that decision as a board to go to 7.5, I want to make sure we come back to that and say, is the 25th really the right date to allow teachers time to prepare and allow families who are not going to send their kid back time to shift to online, those kinds of things. So I'll stop. You've heard my piece, but please let's come back to that again. If we vote for 7.5, let's come back to that, how we roll it out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Klein. I'll say on the last item that you wanted to talk about, in no way would I imagine that even if the numbers project to hit it for Monday the 25th, that we would be back in the classroom on the 25th. I would certainly think that the earliest possible return date would be, the Monday after that, if the numbers are in line with what we were talking about tonight. I'll say that while it's fresh in my mind. We'll move on to Mrs. Flipiak.
Thank you. I love the data. I cannot do that, but I love that you guys can provide that data. I love decision making based on data. But what, Mr. Darga, could you please share with the board and those who are watching in our plan, how many days, like once we hit that threshold in our current plan, how many days, was it 2 days? I can't remember, that before we return back to school.
Yep. So we did it. We in our last plan, we stated that I would send out a notice to our parents announcing 2 days that we would reduce. So once we actually hit the numbers, we hit the 7 days, we're good. The numbers, then I send a notice home. Probably one of our phone blasts followed up with an email blast stating that we've now hit the number, and then I state, so as of today's the 20th, for example only, I would then say today's January 20th, we've hit our numbers. We'll resume in-person instruction on the 22nd and go from there.
So as to what Mr. Miller was just saying, what I do think that that's something that we need to go, we need to come back to if we do vote on this. In your personal assessment, you and Dr. Tafalski, how many days do you feel that staff and the team needs to get back into the building? Is it 2 days? Is it a week? Are you ready to now? I don't know.
And I agree, and I appreciate the opportunity. On behalf of the staff, our staff is motivated and dedicated. But let's be honest, they've been in this mode of instruction. I would, like what Mr. Miller stated, I could not see anything before that first February 1st, if not that first week within February or so. And one of the things that's in the back of our mind, of course, is as Mr. Klein stated, the more time we take to get them back based on data, every single day offers another opportunity for more vaccines. So we try to toggle that. We all we all work with this as well. And again, we talk about the sleepless nights. As a superintendent of schools, this comes on my shoulders as well as your shoulders making these decisions. So I wrestle with this all of the time. So again, I along with Mr. Miller, as he stated, as well as others, I could not see anything happening before February 1st. Then there's always talk out there. I speak with a lot of, I'm in the buildings all the time. We have a lot of our teachers are still in the buildings teaching from their classrooms. There's a lot of discussions here at central office. We've got the midwinter break coming up 2 weeks after that. We've got, there's other breaks coming. So we always look at that time frame. The bottom line is the governor stated March 1st. It was the ultimate kind of, last, earmark of a date that she had given. And I am big on the data point. I'm happy that the board recognized that data is the tool that we've always used. As I stated, several schools have now adopted data because we did. So, but to answer your question, nothing before the 1st. I would plead with the board on behalf of the staff as well as their families to make those transitions, get those Plan B schedules ready, to get the kids back in school at least a week, if not more.
And Mrs. Filipiak, just to answer the question, I think Mrs. Warren asked it in August. The buildings, I think, are ready right now. I think teachers need a day or two in classrooms to kind of get things ironed out. We want to make sure that we can get some of this final PPE ordered. But if you said we needed to go back, we could get back in relatively short order with the physical preparation of everything. That's not the issue. I think, like Mr. Darga said, and the board has been concerned with like switching back so quickly for the teachers. And then for the parents too, like I think if you ask 50% of the parents, they want their kids out in the next 12 hours. But then if you ask the other parents, they might say like, we need a little bit more than the 2 business days. So, and the 2 business days is worked out because it kind of gives us with that Wednesday off and then the weekend, it starts nice. So it either starts on the Thursday, Friday, or it starts on the Monday, Tuesday kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's something we would need to go back around and adjust were we to approve this.
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Lukey?
I'm not comfortable with lowering the percentage. I'm not understanding the rush. I'm not understanding why it needs to be now. We went back into hybrid processing mode because the return to school left so many people feeling uncomfortable. I don't know what dynamics have changed in regard to that. So to say, I mean, when the board voted 5% in the fall, I felt safe with that. I felt comfortable with that. When the parameters haven't changed within the buildings, I'm not understanding the risk to increase the infection rate. You can't eat in a restaurant, but because a cafeteria is down to 250 students, it's okay. I don't know how to wrap my head around that. I'm sorry. My contacted Children's Hospital of Michigan. She says they're not seeing kids coming in so much with COVID. What they're seeing is the kids that are coming in after that they've had COVID with the immune response issues. That's frightening to me. They refer to them as the silent spreaders. Kids are resilient. You know, when my kids were young and bouncing around the house and I'd take them for a physical and then the doctor would say, oh, she's got a ear infection. It'd be like, what? Young kids don't complain. They don't. We're not going to know that they don't feel well. They are way too excited probably to see their teachers and their friends to dare mention that they're not feeling good and risk having to stay home. That concerns me. The survey that said, would you return to school face-to-face or hybrid? I don't interpret that the same as, are you ready to return to school? We have come so far. I know it's long. I know it's agonizing. Everybody wants to get back to normal, but I can't understand sacrificing safety at this point when we've come this far. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Lukey. Mr. Martin.
So the one thing that encourages me is I think, Mike, you mentioned that the last time we were in person in October, there was no in-person spread. So that's good. Doesn't mean it's going to continue that way, but that's good. We're at 100% mitigation. So if I look at the numbers, you know, getting down to 7.5 would allow us to get back into school really in a couple of days, but I don't think that's feasible. I think, you know, at the earliest it's February 1st. That said, these numbers could take a flip. That doesn't mean we're getting back in school 2-1. I mean, they can go up tomorrow and the rate then goes up and we push that date out. So I think that, you know, I'm not opposed to the 7.5 rate. I just want to make that, you know, point that out. That doesn't necessarily mean 2-1 is going to be a return date. It all depends on how the numbers play out. At some point, these numbers will level out. They're not going to continue to drop because we know, you know, it's not going to go away until everyone gets the vaccination, those that do get it. So at some point, the drop's going to level out. I like the later date because I think it provides teachers enough time to at least get the first round of vaccinations, those that want to get the vaccination, and it helps with a little bit of safety and security in that point. So that's kind of all I had. So I guess with the motion, I would be okay with the 7.5. The one thing, as Dr. Jen mentioned, you know, that 7.5 can go up or down, and then you're in or out. That's not a lot of fun for parents. And, you know, if you go back in February, you know, in reality, if we got 4 months of school left, at that point, is it worth it? You know, if we end up going out again, the numbers spike again. So I think that needs to be made clear as well, that, you know, if we do go back and we decide to go back, you know, I know we revisit this every 30 days, but if we do start to spike again and go over that 7.5, is it really worth it to come back at that point? So that would be some of my final thoughts on that.
Can you speak more to that, Mr. Martin, so I'm clear on what you're referring to with respect to spiking and returning?
So if the numbers go up, right now we're at a 7.2. Let's say the trend continues down. Really in reality, based on my numbers, we could get back into class as early as February 1st. And if they continue to drop down with even the 5% rate, you're looking at February 4th. So it's not much of a date. But if those numbers are at 7.2 based on a couple of days ago, start to push up, then those days get pushed out. We might still meet the February 1st if it's only up for a day or two based on the 7 days, because we've got a little bit of time. But if they do spike up, and let's say we go back, but then they start to spike up on January 30th or February 1st, February 2nd, whatever the date is, they spike up. We don't meet that. We've got to meet that 7 day. I think last time we were in class, 3 weeks. So let's say we hit that 3 weeks again. Now you're at March and we go up again and we're out again for a couple more weeks, we're in April. Is it really worth it to come back to school in April with basically 2 months of school left?
And you're suggesting revisiting it at that point in time then?
I would say, yeah, we revisit to say, is it worth keeping this 7.5 or staying remote completely now until basically the next school year? If we get to that date past, down the line, we're pushing towards the end of the school year.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were talking about that or if you were talking about like a handwriting on the wall scenario where we've got 6 days, towards the 7th day, it spikes again, but we're still under the average number, so we're heading back. Would it make sense to maybe pause the button again? Under that
if we go over that 7.5 and we're out, we're in for a month, we go over the 7.5, we're out for 2-3 weeks. At that point, why come back? We're already too far, we're well down the line of the school year, and it doesn't make sense to me to come back at that point.
Okay. It's good commentary. Thank you. Okay, a couple of items. Mr. Darga, are you committed here this evening that, with the motion that's on the table, you would not activate a return regardless of the data until February 1st or after?
That's correct. We can write that right into the motion if that's what the board wishes. Again, the nice thing with the motions, these are board generated motions. So if it's the will of the board to state that we wish to, not only use data, but add a date in that we will not return beforehand, that's exactly how we write that motion. Just as if the board decided they wish to use, for example, 5%, stay with 5%, we would then write in 5% with a February 1st return, whatever the board wishes.
Because I'm in favor of having a limiting date, right? Like a date that's out there prior to which we do not go back, primarily for, a chance for educators, staff members, parents who are rearranging schedules to have sufficient time to be able to be ready, rather than, if the numbers we put in place, hit by Tuesday and we're like, hey, guess what? We're back today. I'm in favor of a limiting date that way, which would be, in my mind, a February 1st or after date. So, yeah, I guess maybe if this motion passes, I guess I'll immediately move that we use a limiting date of February 1st for that plan. How's that sound? Okay, I'll go around one more time. If anybody, it sounds like, we're going to have a mixed opinion on this thing, it sounds like to me. But if there's any last comments, let's do them one last time and then we'll call the vote. Okay, we'll start with Dr. Warren.
Thank you, Gordon. I definitely agree with you too with that February 1st date. I think I'm not saying we're go back on that date, right? Obviously, it's a data-driven date. However, I do feel that if, like Gordon stated, we're ready to go on Tuesday with the data, I feel like waiting till February 1st would give the teachers and the families time to prepare and get back. The reason why I'm okay with moving the numbers and what has changed was the CDC now says it's safe to go back to school. Dr. Fauci says it's now safe to go back to school. Our own governor says it's now safe to go back to school. So with all of those reasons, I feel it's safe to return within the parameters that we're setting right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. McDonald.
Okay, I'd like to speak for a moment to when we were back in session for those 2 weeks. And Mr. Darga, you said that, there was no evidence of spread. I think it's important that people know that, especially at the high school level, 2 of the grade levels, I believe 10th and 11th, were only in session 1.5 days. 2 days total if they were taking one of the PSAT tests. Okay. The 9th and 12th graders were in for a total of 5.5 days during that 2-week period. I'm not really sure that's a long enough period to assess whether or not COVID was spreading at that time or not. The other reason that I think that moving to 7.5% at this time is ill-advised is we are entering flu season. That's going to complicate this mix somewhat. As far as the kids are concerned, I will always err on the side of caution. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, 7.5 is just too high for me, but that's, I think I've made my points clearly before. The only thing I would suggest is that one piece I'll add since Ms. McDonald brought it up is, I know we keep saying that there was 0 incidents, but I think we also know that's probably not true. We know that we didn't have an outbreak, and that's awesome. I mean, I don't think we had like a massive outbreak from kids being in schools, and that does make me feel better. If we go this route, that certainly makes me feel better. And I think there's evidence that those aren't common. But we do know that kids are asymptomatic spreaders. And so we know that there's trickle down. We know there's a grandparent out there that got sick somehow from this, but those numbers may be small. And again, it's all about that risk assessment. And I don't profess to know that we have the right answers on that. But anyways, enough for me. Just too high for me, but we'll move on to a vote soon.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Klein. Mrs. Flipiak.
I have no comment.
Okay, Mrs. Lukey.
Couple things. A student leader reached out to me, and I thought that was pretty impressive. Typed up something and sent it out. They referenced the fact that now President Biden has rollout plans as soon as he takes office. So the person's opinion was, why rush? Let's see what the new leader has in store for us. I thought that was mindful. A new semester is approaching. They mentioned how chaotic it can be at the secondary level when schedules aren't set. And you have people down to the counselor's office and in and out of classrooms. They might be there a day, they might not. They might walk in, they might not belong there, they might walk out. I'm hoping that we'll be past that point when they return and they'll all be settled into their schedules. But I just also thought that was very mindful of this student. Something sticks in my head every day that a staff member said. They said they'll go back to work because they love the kids that much. They said, at what cost will I be returning to work? I'm not certain. And it's someone with decades of dedication to our school system. As so many other teachers also have said, they love the kids. They'll do it for the kids, even if it's not necessarily what they feel is the best thing. I'm really tired of hearing about other schools, and not in a disrespectful way, but when things get brought up, like, well, this school this school that, then I take the time to go see what that school does. The intricacies and facets of their district are so different that I feel like that really needs to stop happening. It's not a one size fits all shoe, so let's stop trying to try it on. Let's do what Allen Park needs, because we're never going to fit the mold of another district. It's just way too complicated, too many intricacies. I would love to see the kids back in school. but I want to see them. I want to see them there safely. And I just don't feel comfortable with raising the rate at this time if we're not going to go back at least March 1st, because when I was in the meeting, that seemed to be the consensus. I asked, so is it crazy for me to propose? I asked the group I was in that if we wait, that we don't do the hybrid, so the schedules don't all have to change and everything. Hopefully some teachers will have had their shots by then, the immunizations, that March 1. And so many heads went up and down on the screen that actually surprised me. So I would like to see the rate and possibly a March 1 return date. I think we need to stay safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Lukey. Mr. Martin.
Yeah, so I 100% agree with everyone here. The best interest of the kids. I look at coming back is going to help these kids, help them mentally, whatever the case may be. Initially, to Mrs. Lukey's point, when I saw the 9% at Southgate, I thought, oh, that sounds great. But then I also thought, I looked at how their data was actually prepared. And it seemed like they a little bit selected who they wanted to select from their rank, for their matrix. So almost a force back. So, if I look at the trends again, even if we go down to 7%, we're at that in a couple days, in a few days, at least in a week. And then getting back to the 5%, we're down a couple days after February 1st. So that perspective, I would be okay with a 7.5, understanding too that, it doesn't mean we're coming back February 1st. This date could spike and get pushed out. So I guess that's where I stand at this point.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Martin. I'll be brief then. If you look at, the way I've looked at this is you kind of weigh it, right? We're weighing the equities of return versus stay remote. And in September, to me, the equities were in favor of staying remote for a number of reasons. We, really had a summer break where we were starting a new school year, but we knew we'd be leading into holidays where people are mixed and gathered. We were also being warned that, we were going to be hitting a very, very heavy time. It turned out to be true. The numbers spiked significantly over November and December. And so for me, the equities at the time were, slightly in favor of let's keep it at 5% and be cautious. In no way do I think going to 7.5 is reckless. I do think it is loosening up a little bit. And why am I in favor of that now, or how can I justify that now? It's simple. The scales have slightly tilted back the other way for me because we've been at home for an additional 4 months. Because we're approaching a full calendar year of remote learning. That time away does continually take weight out of one end of the scale and dump it into the other for me. And so, I'm not saying that I'm, there's just no other way to do this, or, I'm just absolutely in favor of let's get back down. We all get emails, I'm sure, where people are insisting that, kids' freedom dictates they're back in school full time with no mask yesterday. It's not what I'm saying at all. It's a very close call, whether to go incrementally up or stay status quo at 5. I can justify incrementally going up, knowing 10% is the outside of the medium range, and we were at 5. In my mind, I can justify splitting that difference, and I'll consider that an incremental increase, and I can get there because the passage of time for me is the weight that has slightly tilted this back to say let's give this a shot, given the emotional and mental side of this that we're dealing with. So, anyway, just wanted to cover that. So the suggested motion on the table is that the Allen Park Board of Education reconfirm the mode of instruction, which includes the continuation of remote learning, while monitoring the 7-day rolling average for Wayne County, utilizing the COVID Act Now site for 7 consecutive days at a positive rate of less than 7.5% for a safe return to in-person instruction per the COVID extended learning plan. The Board of Education will reconfirm how instruction will be delivered every 30 days. That was moved and supported. It sounds to me like Mrs. Flipiak, if you would please take a roll call vote for this one.
Mr. Miller first, if I may.
Yes.
Because we're looking to add in, per the discussion of the board, a date, I would suggest that the current motion on the floor does not have a date. So therefore, we may need to
I'm aware of that. Let's vote on this part of it, and then we'll jump to that right after it.
Very good.
Thanks.
Okay, for myself, I vote yay. Mr. Klein?
I vote no.
Okay, Mrs. Lukey?
No.
Mr. Martin?
You froze, Steve. You got
I was on mute. I said yes. Sorry about that.
Mrs. McDonald?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And Dr. Warren?
yes.
Thank you.
Okay. 4-3 votes don't happen often with this group. I don't suspect it'll be a habit for us. I respect everybody's opinion. But the motion carries at 4-3. Just anecdotally, I would tell Mike, if there's any reason to believe that there is development, vaccine related or otherwise, that would significantly impact how we're looking at this issue, I know myself, and I suspect everyone else would be more than willing to get right back to a special meeting to further discuss. So, just keep that in mind. I do have a suggested motion that the motion that we just passed with respect to the 7.5% and the 7-day components for the learning plan, that we add language to that motion that that in no event will the district return the school prior to February 1st. That way we're using it as a limiting date. Is there a second?
Oh, second. Sorry.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Let's roll call that one as well then.
Okay, I vote yay. Mr. Klein?
We didn't get a chance for discussion on a new motion, which I don't have a lot of discussion to have. Is it out of order to perhaps add a friendly amendment? Help me out, Gordon. I'm moving way out of line.
You know what? No, we can go around for discussion or what do you got in mind?
I'll be quick. Yeah, I like the idea of at least February 1st. I can that, so I'm not leaning against that. Just help me. Should we also add in there a timeline from when we hit that? Is it 2 days? Is that already into the already motion? So it's 2 days.
That's correct.
2 business days. 2 calendar days.
That's in the extended learning plan already, so you don't have to reconfirm that.
Okay, and is it 2 business days or 2 calendar days? It's like if it happens on a Saturday.
2 business days.
Okay. Do you want me to go ahead and give my vote now, or are we going to go around one more time?
Well, is there anything else you want to ask? I mean, we
No,
can
that's good. No, that was.
Let's keep the vote going.
Okay, I can vote for that. I am a yes then.
Okay, great. Mrs. Lukey?
This is at the 7%, 7.5 February 1 start date.
This is just on the no matter what, we're not going back prior to February 1. The 7.5 already passed.
Right, okay, just wanted to make sure I had it clear. I would have lowered my percentage if we had a March 1 date, but there wasn't any discussion. So it's already passed, so yes.
Okay, Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
I want to confirm once again that this includes remote on Wednesday.
Correct.
Then I'm a yes.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
Yes.
And Dr. Warren?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a quick question, Gordon. So to Mrs. McDonald's point, just to confirm, this is similar to the schedule we had back in October when we went back before, correct? Remote.
It's exactly that schedule. It's exactly that plan. The only thing that changed tonight and in the combination with last week's meeting is that we went from 5% as our COVID act down number to 7.5%.
Yep.
And we went from trailing it or watching it for 14 days to watching it for 7. And then we put on, no matter what the data says, we're not going to start prior to February 1st.
Those
Thank you.
days were slightly reduced too, weren't they? In time, didn't we release kids just a little bit earlier?
That was something that we were looking at now, actually, is the bell schedule.
Okay,
So
that would stay the same.
That might, we're not, go ahead, Mike.
That's the information that our principals will share. We're still working with the APA and Mr. Berkey with that.
Okay. All right. I want to thank my colleagues for a difficult, for a professional way of handling a difficult topic. Thank you to everybody. It's number 9. Let's move on to reports of officers. We'll start, we'll go in reverse order then on that tonight. So we'll get Mr. Martin to go first.
No reports.
Mrs. Lukey.
I just want to thank everyone who sent emails. So many of them were kind, gracious with so much information and stories that they shared. And they all had the safety of the students and the concern of the students, and it was really touching. Reminds me why I'm doing this. It was parents, teachers. We come from a great community, and I'm really, really proud to be a part of that. Last week, I forgot to say thanks to Mr. Moynihan and to Mr. Shearer, and I just want to say I'm going to miss Mr. Moynihan's experience and insight, and Mr. Shearer, I'm definitely going to miss your mind and sense of humor. Thank you both for everything that you had done. I now have Mr. Shearer's seat. Big shoes to fill, but I'm up for the challenge. I appreciate it. And just a shout out to the girls that went to states. They were the only freshmen there, and I think that just really says a lot for our program and our coaches. And I want to thank the athletic director and Megan and the coaches for everything in addition to a regular season that they had to go through to help make that happen for the 2 athletes. I appreciate them very much, and I know the athletes do too. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Lukey, and I'm quite certain that Mr. Shearer feels you're doing a great job filling his chair. So we'll go to Mrs. Flipiak.
For me, today is a proud moment to be involved, like you said, Mr. Miller, in civil discourse on Inauguration Day, and to be part of that political process. So that feels good to me today. I also want to give a shout out to all the student teachers out there, student teaching during COVID. I can't imagine what that could possibly be like. Student teaching was one of the hardest experiences of my life. And to have to do it during COVID, I was talking with one of my staff members about it today, and we couldn't imagine what that must be like. So a shout out to all of them, and to all of the community members and staff members and students that I've talked to. I truly listen to you. I think about what you say to me. Your lives touch my heart. This community touches my heart, and I am just really proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Flipiak. Mr. Klein.
Yeah, I'm following line. Lots of thank yous. Thank you to the community. It's a tough year and it's continuing to be tough, but thank you for staying with us. Thank you to the families for reaching out. I think Laura mentioned that we have read tons of emails, right? And they're impassioned and they're kind and they're frustrated and they're all kinds of things. But at the bottom, everybody has the kids' interest in mind. That's really that's the nice thing about this thing is that we all have one common mission. I think we can all agree on that, and we just have different opinions on how to get there safely, and that's okay. Thank you to my board colleagues. We've said it before, but civil discourse, man. I don't necessarily agree with the decision we made tonight, but I think it very well could be the best decision, right? It's a group of 7 people, and I'm split in a lot of ways, and so I really appreciate that we can do this and work together as a group. So I really am hopeful that this will work out well, and definitely be rooting for it the whole way. Who else? I think I've thanked everybody. Who did I miss? Thank you to all the staff for all the. I mean, it's a terrible time to be in a classroom right now or in a building, right? It's hard. It is really hard. So thank you for all you're doing. and we'll continue to do. We know that we know how hard this is. So thank you for that. And just one plea for, there are still families out there that are not ready to return. This decision will be hard on some of those families. If we can, as a district, figure out how to help them, if they transition to full remote, can we figure out how to help them a little bit more with, teacher support? Maybe there's some creative ways to take an extra teacher who, let's think about that, because I know that that's going to be really hard is for some of those parents that are trying to figure out, all right, do I send my kid back now? And if they choose not to, can we help them maybe transition?
Yeah, just as a note, Mike, it's a pretty clean break right at the middle school and high school because it's a semester. So parents, with this in mind, we will be returning face-to-face sooner rather than later, assuming that data point hits. So parents, please be ready. At the middle school and high school, if you'd like to transfer into the fully virtual program, we can facilitate that for sure. Elementary is a little bit more difficult because it's not a clean break, but the teachers have done an amazing job so far working with kids who have come in late or left early or any of those things. So
yeah, I'd just love to talk about ways I know that the virtual world is tough no matter what, and that all online piece can be really tough. And if we can find ways to offer more AP teacher support in some way without tasking classroom teachers that are already going to be in face-to-face full time, but if there's some ways to think creatively about resource support for them, I know they're going to need it. But all right, thank you enough. That's enough for me.
Mr. Dargan and I will talk. We'll talk about that. I'm sure that's on my to-do list. It's probably already on my whiteboard, right, Mike?
Can we get down a bigger whiteboard?
What's that? Yeah.
Can we get down a bigger whiteboard?
All right. Are you all set, Mr. Klein? Okay. Thank you so much for that. Mrs. McDonald.
I completely echo the sentiments that have already been stated. I would like to thank everybody and work, promise to work with you guys as we move forward. I am happy about the N95 masks for the staff. I hope that we have enough where they can change them out every once in a while. There you go, John, Dr. T. But I don't know if the students will be able to understand what they're saying. We'll see.
So, we're ordering 500, so we can start with at least 2 per staff member.
Right.
And then I was talking in it today because I had the same concern as you, Mrs. McDonald. And the person that I was talking with didn't have a problem understanding me. However, it wasn't in a room of 20 kids. So, elementary a little bit less of an issue because they have the lavalier necklaces. But at the middle and high school, that'll certainly be something that I'm sure they're going to work around.
Okay, but it's another step that hopefully shows our staff that we do care for their safety and we are very concerned about it. I'm hoping against all hope that they will be able to get vaccinated. It sounds like they have to be very resourceful in finding their own ways of getting that done. So hopefully they get on some lists through the Beaumont system, Henry Ford system, whatever, and just be persistent. So thank you again, and have a good evening.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Dr. Warren.
Yes, echoing everybody, just tons of things out there to everybody. First and foremost is my board. This is my board, I say my board, but my board colleagues, right? This is my, this is hard. Like, it's just, it's so hard. So I really appreciate each and every one of you. Your opinions really matter to me. All the letters and the emails that I received, the phone calls, the texts, the pictures, the heartfelt stories of reasons why, right? Both ways of it's time, it's not time. I really appreciate it. I try to respond to every single person, but I know that sometimes 1 or 2 get lost in my junk mail and it takes me a day to get over there. So I really do appreciate every single one of you. I'm a graduate of this community. I grew up in this community. My dedication is 100% to this community. So, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everything everyone's doing. That's pretty much where I stand. I know that we just celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I'm not a big quote person, but I'm going to end with a quote today because everybody in my practice asks me, how are you so happy all the time? Like, I know you're dealing with a lot of stuff like we all are today, right? And just like Martin Luther King Jr. said, I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great of a burden to bear.
And I think they would call that a mic drop quote there, Dr. Jen. Okay, I've talked enough tonight, and everybody's thanked everybody already, so it would be redundant at this point. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion or meeting is adjourned. Thank you to all my colleagues and staff, Dr. Tefelsky, Tiffany, Mr. Darga. Thank you for being here tonight. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for everything tonight. Appreciate it.
Have a good